Deltarune, probably one of the biggest indie game knowns to date. 2025. This is the year. Um, Deltarune was a game made by Toby Fox. He's probably one of the best like indie game creators out there. His original creation was Undertale, but his main goal was Deltarune. And today, I'm here to tell you why I believe that the SnowGrave route is actually the original route for Deltarune. So, one thing that's commonly told around for us in Deltarune is that our choices don't matter, that we can't do anything, we can't change or become who we want to be. We're stuck as what we are, not as what we want to become. And oftentimes, that's a lot of oppression that we face in real life as people. Honestly, I really resonate with Deltarune because it really shows some real life aspects into a video game. What if we could change who we were? What if we could become different? What if we could change fate? In today's video, I'm here to show you why I believe that the SnowGrave route was the original route. So, as shown in the prophecy, by the way, spoilers ahead, as shown in the prophecy of Deltarune, Rouse knows everything. Rouse knows everything. He knows everything that's going to happen, everything that did happen, everything that will happen. He knows everything. But something's weird. In the prophecy, it says that Chris, they are the cage with human parts and a soul. It's kind of weird that they phrase Chris around that instead of saying the human with a soul. Chris doesn't have human parts. They are human. They're alive. They're a person. So it doesn't make any sense why the prophecy would call them a cage with human parts instead of the soul that's a human. It doesn't make any sense. But if you remember at the beginning of chapter 1, it actually says that we have a choice to make what we want to be. It asks us what our favorite blood type is. We have a vessel. We can figure out what we want to look like. We can figure out how we want to act toward people. What's our gift? Everyone has a gift. Everyone in Deltarune has a gift. Whether it's blatantly obvious or something on the more subtle lines. But that isn't exactly what we're talking about. We were supposed to be the vessel, but we got thrown into Chris. We forcefully took over this person's life. They aren't just us. We took them over. Chris isn't us. Chris is just an extension of what we want to do. Nothing that we do is something that Chris asked for. Chris could probably be terrified with half of the things that we've done at Deltarune. Susie comes in late to class in chapter, right after we shortly arrived here. Alpha says, "Hey, where's the chalk at? I don't have any chalk." Chris, can you please be a kind person and go grab me some? By the way, no one will go. Susie kicks down the door, comes in late, and says, "Am I late?" Something like that. Susie comes in and says something like that. And then Alphys is like, "Oh, well, you two can actually go and get it since, y'all are closer." Yes. Regardless, we walk outside, and the first thing we see Susie is eat the chalk. So we already know that Susie offers a bad kid if kicking the door down late to class was already enough of an answer. But a little bit more into the conversation, Susie says, "We're partners on the project. How about you do it? And I'll just sit here and chill and do absolutely nothing." And they kind of ask us, "How do you feel about that?" And then immediately after that, she says, "It doesn't matter. Your choices don't matter anyway." Which is already something weird off rip that a lot of people have noticed in the first chapter. If you watch a lot of reaction gameplays, everybody's surprised. We even get to choose a choice. And even if you got the opportunity to move around, which sort of option that you wanted to pick, you didn't get a choice. The game automatically, no, Susie automatically chose for you. That's weird. Doesn't make any sense. But that had me thinking, okay, Susie got to choose first. Alright, let's continue to play. skip to chapter 2. We go to a crossroads. What's the first thing that happens? Rouse says, okay, there's two separate pathways. We should split them. Try to go somewhere around, see where we need to go first. Which seems perfectly fine and normal at the start. But then Chris is also asked, hey, Chris, do you want to go with Rouse or do you want to go with Susie? You do get an option to pick. You have time to pick which option that you want. But the game doesn't let you pick. Susie never let you pick. Never. In the trash can area, you can either pick Rouse or Susie to go with. Susie says, hey, why does Chris always get to pick? Let's go Rouse. And goes with Rouse anyway. And then skips forward and continues to do what they do. But it doesn't make any sense. Why? Why is Chris or us never allowed to choose who they wanted to be? Why can we never fully have a choice to ourselves? It's because Susie can defy fate. Susie has no choices here. And the reason I say this theory is because let's skip all the way to chapter 4. Gerson. Whenever we do the fight with Gerson, it's a 1v1 fight between him and Susie. Okay, that's interesting. I think he's one of the only bosses that actually has forced us into a one. I could be wrong. Just theories, of course. But he asked for a 1v1 with Susie. We also know in the past, during the whole entire chapter, that he's been wanting to talk to Susie. Not exactly talk in like a heart-to-heart conversation, but more like a mentor-student relationship. This is a really, really interesting relationship here because Susie and Gerson have an entirely different dynamic that doesn't exactly go with each other. So Susie's more bashful, more a follower rather than a leader, which is also another common trope in her life. Susie, in the fight with Gerson does two things. He tells us every chapter that we played leading up to that point, and then chapter 5. And then he also tells Susie, you're the pen. You choose what fate you want to write. What do you want to do, Susie? And Susie says, I don't know, that's really up to Chris. I'm not the one who writes fate here. I'm just the one that fights. Which shows me the mentality of Susie, because she is always alone, but she's more of a follower. She's not inherently a bad person. She's really good. She's actually a very kind and nice person to get to know. Of course, she's rough around the edges. That's just because society has conformed her to being someone that she really isn't. As it's shown, Susie has never really had parents, and she's always been said in the story that she's had to move from town to town. So it means that Susie never really had an opportunity to make friends. So she thinks, most likely in her head, if I can just be mean to people or be rude, I won't have to experience the pain of losing someone. That is a very human trait of Susie. It's very human. It's something very relatable that a lot of people can relate to. But another thing that we have to keep in mind is during prophecy, it says, I'm going to go back into what I was saying earlier. The human trait, the human soul, with a cage. And that's a cage. A cage with a human soul. The second hero. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said the girl. It said the girl that will eventually find love, and they were also wielding a sword. Susie can't have a sword. Susie wields axes, and if you really want to classify the devil's knife, it isn't exactly a sword, and I don't think we ever. It's more like a scythe. We can't really count that as anything. But Susie can't equip swords, but she really can. If you go into the game files, you can realize that Noelle actually is able to equip a sword if you have her equip her on your team in sections where you get your sword. You can go to the items, you can go over your progression in Deltarune, you can grab items, you can grab swords, you can buy them from shops, or you can obtain them from chests, you can obtain them through basically anything. And if you have Noelle on your team in an area where she's not supposed to, she can equip swords. Deltarune is a common trope that shows us that the Darkner's world is entirely different to the Lightner's world. Because we get to be who we want to. Susie has a battle axe, pointy wristed cuffs on her, on both hands, and a battle axe, like I said. Chris, but it mainly fits her actual outfit in the real world. It does it not? However, Chris has a whole night outfit. It's weird. It doesn't exactly have and Rouse. Rouse is probably one of the biggest enigmas built here. They know the entire prophecy, but they stay quiet. They said that they don't want to exactly tell Chris and Susie everything because they simply wanted to protect them. They said that they wanted to let them enjoy the time that they had. Almost like somebody that's already accepted fate. Rouse has seen the prophecy. How many times? No. Doesn't exactly matter. But what's important is that Rouse's mindset, the more and more as we progress through Deltarune, gets progressively more depressing or realistic in a sense that you can be in Deltarune. And it's really shown here. And even at the end, when we get towards the end of chapter 4, the prophecy, the one that Susie punches and bleeds on her hand. Maybe it's a sign. Maybe it's a sign that Susie does have the power to change fate. Maybe Susie is the one that is Deltarune. Maybe she's going to be the one to save Deltarune. It's an interesting thought to think about. And it's also weird how Gerson knows that fact. If it is a fact, at least. What's also weird is that Gerson told us about all the chapters. Except he wasn't there for at least the other 3. I'm pretty sure 3 or 4. I think it was 3. Yeah, it was 3. He wasn't there for the other 3. And he told us about chapter 5. I mean, we got like a little sneak peek to chapter 5. So it's interesting. The Dark World can revive people. So maybe somebody else can also be revived. Why would Toby Fox have such a key detail? Just that makes sense. Maybe Des is the knight. Maybe somebody else. Who knows? Regardless, though, back to the SnowGrave. Our choices start to matter the more Susie is in us. Chris or us make our own decisions. We can either inflict pain or we can shield people from it. We don't need to fight everybody. But when we do, things seem to change a lot. We actually get to freeze enemies. We get to take them out. We get to take them down. Actually gain something. Our choices do matter, especially with SnowGrave. Because if our choices didn't matter, then we wouldn't have fought Spam Time Mia at the end. We would have still fought the Queen. And we were supposed to fight the Queen until Bowser said, "Why do you want to cause her ruin so much?" It doesn't make any sense. Maybe we're still going to reach the same end result. But maybe it's different how we get there. It's all theories and everything else that we probably thought of before. Probably even said most of this in what was it, 2019, whenever Deltarune came out, I think. I'm not sure. But Susie had a lot of traits that breaks Deltarune. But I'd really be interested in what y'all's thoughts are. I would certainly love for y'all to leave them in the comments, or I also plan on posting this video on TikTok too, trying to grow my content a little bit more. But honestly, I'm really think about this. I'll see you on the next video. Appreciate it.